Another big coaching move that happened overnight here. And finally, some good news for Notre Dame fans. I feel like it's kind of been a tough couple weeks here after that championship game berth. You look at the loss of a couple offensive linemen in Spindler and Pat Coogan, who played a lot. You know, there's so much depth there. They probably won't feel those losses too much, but Al Golden headed to the Bengals. I think some of the fans have been split on the Chris Ash hire. And then recently, the big one that we thought was a done deal, but obviously wasn't, James Blanchard, general manager at Texas Tech, turning down that position at Notre Dame to stay at Texas Tech. But now you bring in one of the top recruiters in the country, one of the top developers he has been at Penn State over the last 7 years of the running back position. Ja'Juan Seider, longtime top assistant coach in college football, longtime assistant, like I said, 7 years there in Happy Valley. And Marcus Freeman gets a guy who, again, we mentioned leaving behind now Nick Singleton, Katron Allen after they return. That's a pretty interesting dynamic there that those guys just returned. But Marcus Freeman gets a guy who is a stud recruiter, big time developer. And again, like I said, he's had his staff plucked this offseason. Chad Bowden going to USC as well. This is a nice get for them.
Huge. By the way, before the Notre Dame fans jump in the comments, we know that Spindler and Coogan were very much at risk of potentially losing their jobs.
That's why I said they probably won't feel it too much. But
Notre Dame is absolutely stacked at offensive line with young talent. But still, like you said, Pete, you never want to lose veteran guys that started for you and were leaders really for you on a national championship finalist. So it's the reality of the NIL era and the portal era. You can't keep all these guys, but I'm sure they'll be okay. With Seider, this is a guy, Pete, we've been watching this guy since, I mean, how long? What was the first time this guy
Marshall, maybe? Marshall, when he was, I mean, he's been recruiting South Florida, a guy from Belglade, Florida, the Muck. I think it was when he was at Marshall. He was hitting South Florida hard, getting a lot of guys who maybe were falling through the cracks because of academic reasons, but were like big time 4-star, 5-star type talents.
Yeah, they'll get me on the pronunciations too. I'm going to mess up every pronunciation on this show going forward. So expect that. But I apologize. But this is a guy, again, he's from Belglade, Florida. So those of you who don't know, Belglade is right there on the southern tip of Lake Okeechobee. That's the big I when you're looking at the state of Florida. And it is historically one of the most talent-rich areas, probably the most talent-rich area per capita in the world for football. You had Hall of Famer Ricky Jackson from there. You're talking about, Lewis Oliver back in the day, but some more recent names, Anquan Bolden, Santonio Holmes, Fred Taylor. These just thinking of like Pro Bowl caliber players that came from this very, very small region. And it just
Janoris
Jenkins. And one thing this region is known for is a lot of speed. It is a rural area. I was actually there a couple weeks ago to go bass fishing because right there in the southern tip of Okeechobee, best largemouth bass fishing in the entire country, on top of the fast football players. But rural area, guys grow up playing football. The legend is that they chase rabbits in the sugar fields to get faster. Anyways, this is where he comes from. This is an area he's recruited successfully in his career on top of the entire state of Florida and South Florida. So from a recruiting standpoint, that is part of the map that Notre Dame has not historically done a lot of work there. They haven't needed to, but if you look at the positions Notre Dame might want to improve, just the playmaking wide receivers. They've had exceptional defensive backs, but you can get defensive backs certainly in Florida and in this region as well. But just the overall kind of outside speed and skill, right, which is not what Notre Dame's historically known for as much as what they do in the trenches at running back, which of course is where he's going to be coaching. So this is an area where he can add a recruiting value. Of course, it's an interesting move because you look at top 4 team, Penn State, top 4 team, Notre Dame, top 2 backfield in Penn State, top 2 backfield in Notre Dame, right? Or I guess you throw out Ohio State in the mix, but those guys are gone. So very much a lateral move from a football standpoint. Two teams at the top, both of his position at running back and of the college football world. You hear buzz that maybe his wife wanted to change the scenery. I mean, State College is very, very small. Not for everybody. He's a Florida guy. He's been around, so it's not like he's, not seeing the rest of the country, but maybe he wanted a slightly bigger area. South Bend's not a metropolis, but it's closer to Chicago. This is what you hear. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not going to pass comment. But
and he had the assistant head coach title at Penn State as well.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he's getting a pay bump here. The rumor's always that he's wanted to be a head coach somewhere in Florida, maybe like an FAU, which is close. That's in Palm Beach County, close to where he's at. It's called a pay raise.
I mean, but let's not act like Penn State doesn't have the money to spend either.
Yeah, they just hired one of the most expensive defensive coordinators in history, right? So, you don't. This is not taken from a mid-major. Penn State is a power, as is Notre Dame. So, a very interesting move. I think, look, Jeremiah Love is going to run for 1 million yards no matter who the running back coach is, just because of how good he is, how good the offensive line is. But to me, the recruiting impact is what catches my eye here. Is Notre Dame going to get more of a presence in Florida than they've had really in the past 20 years? This has not been a school that has heavily recruited the state of Florida. They didn't need to necessarily, but Florida has abundant talent in areas where Notre Dame could be stronger. I mean, look, you look at who was the player that hurt Notre Dame the most, right? I mean, I think he wore number 4. Would that be a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
So Jeremiah Smith from South Florida, not that far from where Ja'Juan grew up. So that's an interesting part of the map for Notre Dame.
Canes Cat C305 says if GMs are getting $1 to $2 million a year, a great recruiter can get $2 to $3 million. I think that's part of this whole thing. I mean, look, this may have been already in motion before, whether James Blanchard took that job or not. But and look, there's different roles because what Chad Bowden and James Blanchard do are different than what a Seider does. But I think getting a big time recruiter was an important thing here in this hire for Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, and Seider, look, he's also a great coach. I mean, one thing you've got to look at is not only did Singleton and Allen run wild, they stayed 4 years. Which, if you hate your position coach or you have a bad relationship with your position coach,
you're out of there. Those
guys are out the door. So that is something to be noted, especially with a program like Notre Dame that's so strong on culture. It's important that you have someone that's going to fit in the building and do all those things. One guy I will say that is from Florida is the receiver, Faison, the lacrosse
Jordan
player.
Faison, yeah.
Jordan Faison, right. So you do have some Florida presence at the school, but I think that's something you're going to see more and more of going forward if you have, Seider staying here for a while.
I think it's Seider.
Seider, I've screwed up twice, and I've been covering this guy, Pete. Pete, how long have you been covering this guy? People are gonna be like,
I'm telling you, for like 12 years, man, because he was at Marshall, then he was at West Virginia when West Virginia was always getting guys in South Florida. So we've dealt with it for a while there.
Yeah, so you could rip me in the comments. I've been screwing up names forever.
But it's better than me saying Ash and Jeanty, which I was saying a million times the other day.
Yeah. We need one of those pronunciation guides. But anyways, Notre Dame fans, you got a very, very good running back coach, a very, very good recruiter. And I think if you're trying to get I know he's a running back coach, but if you want to get your receivers a little bit more dynamic, and I think, look, that's been something that's been improving, but we all know that is where Notre Dame maybe lags behind the Ohio States of the world. Santonio Holmes is from the same hometown as this guy. Jeremiah Smith, 30 minutes away. So those are the kind of players that have been going to Ohio State, that have been going to Alabama, that maybe could go to Notre Dame and make a significant impact.
Man, you must have a different GPS than I do. Jeremiah Brower, Miami Gardens, 30 minutes away from the muck?
With no traffic. Let's see.
I don't know, man.
I was just there. Again, really great area. If you Notre Dame fans want to see this area and catch some bass, maybe an hour. Yeah, maybe an hour. But the best largemouth bass fishing. I know, Midwesterners got some nice bass out there. Texas fans listening. folks in California, maybe even up in New York, but telling you, no largemouth bass fishing like Lake Okeechobee right there at the tip, Belle Glade, Florida.
This is the only on Group Chat Football Live do you get this sort of insight here. So we got you covered. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Last topic of